The Kingfisher Way, 21 miles from Baldock to Tempsford in 2014. This charming little local walk follows the course of the River Ivel from its source at the Ivel Springs, now a beautiful nature reserve, in Baldock to Roxton Lock in Tempsford, where it runs into the River Ouse. I walked the Kingfisher Way in 3 stages with 4 different friends on 4 separate days in May 2014. Despite its proximity to the A1, the main London to Edinburgh railway line, and numerous industrial sites, this walk is surprisingly peaceful and countrified, and apart from a few crossings, you have no concept of being boxed in by 21st century urbanisation. The trail was set up by the Ivel and Ouse Countryside Project to enhance the environment for people and wildlife. Many former gravel pits are now fishing lakes. The waymarking was sadly almost non-existent in some places. In fact, it felt like the path was not being properly maintained. In a few places it was very overgrown, and we had to thrash our way through thickets of brambles and chest-high sting nettles, and even climb a few fences. The River Ivel was once an important part of the river and canal transport system, and the Kingfisher Way passes 12 old watermills which were used for grinding the large quantities of corn which were produced by the valley's fertile soils. The only operational and commercial watermill now left is the Jordan's Mill near Biggleswade, a very pleasant place to stop and have a coffee and snack. The path also crosses the park at Henlow Grange, which is currently the home of one of Champneys' health spas. When I was thinking about what to do for my hen party when Steve and I got married the following year, the peaceful serenity which descended on us as we walked through the park on that day in May 2014 flashed into my head, and I knew that I had found the ideal venue. On our walk, I remember joking about the impossibility of ever being able to rub shoulders with the rich and famous people who frequent such places, never thinking that I would be wallowing in luxury there with 15 good friends just 1 year later. The path is not named the Kingfisher Way for nothing, because there are indeed kingfishers living along the River Ivel between Sandy and Tempsford. We were lucky enough to hear their high-pitched, piercing calls, and Keith, who was walking in front, actually saw one. The walk divides neatly into 3 easy stages: Baldock to Arlesey, 6 miles, Arlesey to Biggleswade, 6 miles, and Biggleswade to Tempsford, 9 miles. The river between Baldock and Arlesey. Arlesey to Biggleswade, 6 miles. Testament to the cleanliness of the River Ivel, and my first non-existent encounter with otters, who were conspicuous by their absence. Biggleswade to Tempsford, 9 miles. The River Ivel, just outside Sandy. With Keith and Rick by the weir at South Mills near Sandy. With Rick between Sandy and Tempsford. Near Blunham. Approaching Tempsford with Keith and Rick. Flora and fauna. Banded demoiselle. Comfrey was rampant along the Sandy to Tempsford section. Comfrey, which is also called knitbone, has traditionally been used to make external poultices for healing burns, sprains, swellings and bruises. It has also been used topically for treating inflammatory disorders such as arthritis, gout, and thrombophlebitis, and internally for treating diarrhea. And so was red campion. The crushed seeds of red campion have traditionally been used for treating snake bites. The plant also has a high saponin content and has consequently been used for making soap. Elderflowers, a panacea for all ills. All parts of the elder have numerous medicinal and culinary uses. It has antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral, diuretic and laxative properties. Its most common uses are for colds and flu, and it may also help to alleviate some allergies and boost the functioning of the immune system. Speedwell, or bird's eye. Recent studies have shown that speedwell tea may be an effective preventative treatment for ulcers. It has most often been used for coughs and congestion and as a lotion for irritated or infected skin. Keith, Rick, and cow parsley. Although cow parsley is edible and has numerous medicinal uses, it can easily be confused with other umbellifers, which are extremely poisonous, such as hemlock and giant hogweed. Lessons learnt. Local walks have a lot to offer and should not be underestimated. Brambles and stinging nettles can present formidable obstacles. Kingfishers are vulnerable to hard winters and have been declining due to pollution and unsympathetic river management. They fish blind because they close their eyes when diving into the water. Otters are elusive creatures. It is one of my greatest wishes to see one in the wild, but so far they have eluded me. Psychic experiences in and around Baldock. I had some strange psychic experiences at the Ivor Springs and in and around Baldock on several subsequent local walks in the area, which seemed to validate the information found on a board at the Ivor Springs, although I did not actually come across this information until after my own experiences. It states that the chalk springs there give rise to the River Ivor, which flows north into Bedfordshire to join the River Great Ouse. The focus of the springs is reported to have changed during the course of the millennia. 6,000 years ago, Neolithic farmers built a communal monument, a so-called cursus, running towards the springs from the west, which was thought to be used for funeral rites. In the 2nd century BC, a line of pits was dug, stretching for at least 1.5 kilometres from the springs, across Clothall Common and into the hills towards Wallington. This was thought to be a symbolic boundary of some sort, and it was one of the features of the growing town of Baldock, which flourished during the Roman period. It is now protected as a scheduled ancient monument, on a par with Stonehenge, and is located beneath the large wildflower meadow close to the North Road car park. On one visit, I inadvertently walked across the cursus without knowing it, and suddenly I entered into a different state of consciousness, during which I felt that I was some sort of priestess walking along a ceremonial path. Elsewhere, when I walked across the meadow mentioned on the sign, I once again felt a shift in consciousness as the whole meadow shifted focused, and I was transported back into another time. I experienced something similar when walking across Clothall Common, and was acutely aware of there being subterranea in the area. Again, it felt like I was walking along some sort of ceremonial path. On another occasion, when my friend Gilly and I were walking in the Western Hills near the site of a former henge, Gilly saw bird skulls positioned on posts encircling the site. There is definitely something very special about this area and its connections with the Kingfisher Way and Royston Cave. And once again, this was reinforced by another experience which occurred while I was sitting on a bench on the edge of a field which overlooks the high ground to the south of Bygrave with the Western Hills in the distance. The land I was walking across at that time had previously belonged to one of my uncles, who was a farmer and had a deep love of the countryside and its denizens. As I was sitting on the bench looking across towards the Western Hills, I suddenly felt a hand on my left shoulder and felt the spirit of my uncle standing behind me. He told me that he was so happy that I was walking the land and working with the energies in his special place. Despite the fact that the landscape is scarred by a major road, which now runs in a tunnel under the Western Hills, a railway line, power lines and industrial sites, the magical energy is still there, latent but strong. My uncle wanted to reassure me that nothing is lost in the eternal cycle of death, transformation and rebirth, and that the area would see a new dawn despite the modern encroachments.